finalists are now set. We've sifted through thousands of incredible entries submitted on the creative platform Tongle. Now we're giving 10 lucky hosts the chance to impress. But to be crowned the next great podcast and win a show on iHeartRadio, they'll need your support. Listen to the Next Great Podcast finalists now on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you listen to podcasts. Then go to nextgreatpodcast.com to vote for your favorite to help us find the next great podcast.
My name is Jamie Loftus, and I'm here to tell you about my new show, Lolita Podcast. Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov is one of the most controversial works of all time, and our culture has done its protagonist a huge disservice over the years. I've spent the last few months getting to the bottom of how America turned this abused young girl into a sex symbol, and what that says about us. New episodes drop weekly on Mondays. Listen to Lolita Podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Here we go on a Friday. We are live in Los Angeles. This is the Herd wherever you may be and however you may be listening. Fox Sports Radio, iHeartRadio, and FS1. 1 hour from now, blazing 5 picks. We were 500 last week. 2 wins, 2 losses, 1 push. Joy Taylor is joining me on a Friday. Week has flown by. I saw the weather report around the country this morning. Eric Mangini's in a snowstorm, worst in 10 years in Cleveland. I'm very fortunate to be living here.
Yeah, I know. My sister posted a little Instagram story in the snow in Pittsburgh. It's crazy.
It is nuts right now.
I mean, I used to grow up in that, and now I'm like, I can't do that every day.
Yeah, I met a friend last night of somebody I hadn't seen in 20 years, and we were talking about that. As you get older, you get more weather cranky.
Oh, yeah.
Just when you're a kid, you don't even care. You don't college. I don't even remember it now.
You never thought about it. I know. Every time I would call my grandmother, rest in peace, she would love to talk about the weather. There's all sorts to talk about. It's cold. It's warm. It's snowing. It's raining.
Well, let's start our show with this. We got a lot of football, but I do want to start with a basketball topic. So, James Harden, Russell Westbrook, James Harden didn't work, and Westbrook gets moved on. Now it's John Wall. Story out this morning, and we talked about this briefly yesterday. And now Harden wants to play with John Wall. He preferred him the entire time. And so now James Harden has run through 2 head coaches, a general manager, Dwight Howard, Russell Westbrook, and Chris Paul. Has anybody considered that? In fact, the 2 best runs of James Harden's career, I don't think he's a 1. I think he's a great scorer. The 2 best runs of his career, one was in the 2012 finals when he was a 3 to Westbrook and Harden. And then the other was a few years ago, Western Conference Finals, when Chris Paul essentially took over the team. Why are we... There has been nothing, no indication that James Harden is anything but a great scorer. And I like points, but I'm going to throw a couple things at you. In Wilt Chamberlain's highest 9 scoring seasons, 0 titles. In Michael Jordan's 3 highest scoring seasons, no titles. Just because you score doesn't make you a 1. James Harden has shown us no indication he wants to be a 1. Ones play defense. Ones have leadership skills. Ones elevate others. Ones get along with stars. It's not about points. I'll give you an example. Magic Johnson was a 1. His career average is 19 points a game. He was never the best scorer on his team. It was always Kareem. By the way, Bill Russell was a 1. He averaged 15.5 points a game. But it was his personality, his forcefulness, his willfulness, his defense, and elevating others. I'll give you another guy that's a 1, and this may confuse you. Dwayne Wade was a 1. IQ, alpha, leader, tough, respected. But not all 1s are equal. So when he played with Shaq, D. Wade had the self-awareness to step back, and they had 2 1s. And when he played with LeBron, D. Wade stepped back, had the self-awareness that he was the second best 1. Anthony Davis has never been a 1. Anthony Davis is the world's most talented 2. Being a 1 is availability. Anthony Davis is not always there. LeBron's always ready to play. It's availability. It's productivity. It's leadership. It's both ends. It's being verbal. James James Harden is a scorer. That's it. By the way, loves scoring. But now he can't get along with Westbrook. He can't get with Chris Paul. It was Dwight Howard. It was the GM. It's two coaches. Now I want to play with John Wall. We do this all the time. We can, most valuable player we confuse with best stats. That's not what it's called. It's most valuable player. Most valuable player in the NBA for 20 years now almost has been LeBron James. It was always Michael Jordan in every year. He was the most valuable player, and he was the most valuable guy for the league, for a franchise, for the branding, for his team. He didn't play, they didn't win titles. He did play, they did win titles. But, I look around the NBA, and we think, oh, points. Trae Young's going to score 1,000 million points in Atlanta. Does that mean he's a one? No, it just means he's a talented scorer. And, I look at the ones in my life. Magic was a one. Bill Russell was a one. D. Wade is a one. Larry Bird was a one. Michael was a one. LeBron's a one. But I'll tell you something that's happened in the NBA, and I think it's hard for general managers. The AAU-ization of basketball over the last 20 years. Everybody's friends with everybody. Everybody gets along with everybody. Everybody's got everybody's back. What you get is very few people who are kind of old school and willing to be hated. The late Kobe Bryant. Are going to kind of force their own way. Shaq, he'd move off teams. Shaq ran Shaq's business. The NBA didn't run Shaq. Shaq ran Shaq. Shaq was a one. He thought like a one. He played like a one. He was forceful like a one. He could score like a one. He could defend like a one. By the way, Kareem was a one. But then Kareem, when Magic came to town, realized this kid is more of an elevator of others and stepped aside. But I guess my point with Harden is, how many people's he got to run through before we acknowledge he's just the world's second best two to Anthony Davis? He showed no indication, no affinity for doing many of the things that count as a franchise guy. He just gives you 30 a night. Great, I'll take it. But I can't build a franchise around that. He and Anthony Davis are the world's greatest twos. They don't want to be leaders. There's a reason Anthony Davis and LeBron get along so well. Anthony's like, no, you deal with the media, you talk, you dominate the huddles. Anthony Davis told you, this is not my thing. You never felt New Orleans AD was a leader. You just thought he was a great player. All right, so now we get into football. So this weekend, there's an old saying in business that companies move off employees about a year before they tell employees. If your company is sort of over you, they're not going to give you heads up. They're going to do subtle things, small things, and you'll kind of feel like, I'm getting hints here. Baker Mayfield's career, here it is this weekend. It's the biggest game of his career. Now you would say to yourself, Cleveland's 8-3, everything's going well. Yeah, except when they played good teams like Pittsburgh, they were destroyed. Baltimore, they were destroyed. Raiders, they were manhandled. This weekend they play Tennessee, and it is a precursor to the playoffs because Tennessee is the kind of team, the new GM in Cleveland and the new coach in Cleveland, they need to beat going forward. Tennessee is a very good team, but like every team in the playoffs except Kansas City, they're flawed, and the flaw is perfect for Baker Mayfield. They have no pass rush, and Tennessee's a terrible third down defense, meaning Baker's going to be comfortable. Cleveland will be able to run the football. Baker has to compete this weekend. He could lose in overtime. He could lose close. But if Baker Mayfield can't compete this weekend, what it's telling you is against the Pittsburghs and the Baltimores and the Tennessees and the Raiders, playoff-level teams, even with all this talent in Cleveland, even when the matchup is perfect, Titans really match up. This is a good matchup for Cleveland because Tennessee's got no pass rush and Baker is bad with pass rushes, and they don't have one. 29th more sacks in the league. They got no pass rush, so Baker's going to sit in that pocket and be comfortable. And in fact, Ryan Tannehill will be more uncomfortable in the pocket because Myles Garrett's back for Cleveland and Tennessee's O-line's a little banged up. So this is going to be, and remember, if Cleveland wins this week, then they're going to be 9-3, probably a 2-game wild card lead. It is a huge. This is the biggest Cleveland Brown game. It almost secures a playoff spot for Cleveland. This is the weekend. And the matchup, Tennessee is, everybody now loves Tennessee, but they're a very flawed football team. And the flaws work perfectly for Baker. He's going to have time to throw and a running game that works. They will make a decision privately on that flight back or somewhere during the week. If Baker gets rolled like he did against Pittsburgh or Baltimore or manhandled defensively like against the Raiders, they're moving off him. Greg Cosell earlier this week talked about the similarities with the Titans and the Browns. They're mirror images of each other. That's why Baker better be able to compete this weekend.
Baker Mayfield is still struggling. He's very inconsistent. You can see he plays very fast. There's a frenetic movement to him. But then he'll also make 2 or 3 throws a game that remind us all why he was the number 1 pick when he came out of Oklahoma.
So Buffalo is 8-3, but nobody questions, is the quarterback good enough? Cleveland is 8-3, and it is the question. Is the quarterback a liability? Baker, this weekend, shut me up. Shut America up. Shut your critics up. Attack Tennessee. You don't even have to beat Tennessee, but you better be around with 3 minutes to play. This is your career. This is it. No chatter, no talk, no commercials. This is it. These are the games. Tennessee, a precursor to the playoffs. This will be like a playoff game before the playoffs. By the way, here's just to throw this out, I wrote this down, I forgot this. We were talking about James Harden. And again, I like scoring, but it can't just be scoring. In the last 5 decades in the NBA, you know how many scoring champions have won a title? Shaq once, and then MJ a few times. That's it. So again, I'm not banging on scoring, but I'm saying you can't just be a scorer.
Yeah, I would also say MJ played a significant amount of defense, and Shaq was a problem on the other end as well. So
Right. You got to do more than just score. I'm not anti-score, but you got to do more than score. Coming up this weekend, there is a game that shouldn't frankly be that close. But actually, the better team is an underdog at home. The better team is an underdog at home. And it tells you all you need to know about the NFL and a move that underdog needs to make. That's coming up.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
It takes a lot of grit to serve your country, and the lessons that military service members learn in uniform are valuable no matter which path they've chosen. That's why T-Mobile is supporting iHeartRadio's Vets You Should Know podcast, sharing inspiring stories of dedication, perseverance, and camaraderie from U.S. veterans.
So when I went to that basic camp for the Army, I was told that my voice did matter and that I needed to use it. So from that day on, I had to rebuild myself, really. And it was those members of the military, my friends, the drill sergeants, who really helped me regain my voice and regain my confidence so that I could be a voice for others going forward.
T-Mobile is proud to support iHeartRadio's Vets You Should Know podcast and honor all those who have served our country, this Veterans Day and always. Check out the Vets You Should Know podcast, available now on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Then learn more about T-Mobile's ongoing support of military and veteran communities, including career assistance, community support, and discounts for active service members, veterans, and military families at T-Mobile.com/military. T-Mobile, ready to serve those who serve.
Hello, Earthlings. It's Kesha here, bringing you the devilish sounds and twisted treats of my new podcast, Kesha and the Creepies, where I, your host, Kesha, bring you into my twisted universe, where the supernatural is, well, quite natural. Kesha and the Creepies explores supernatural subjects and alternative lifestyles with today's most exciting pop culture guests and experts in the occult. You may know me from my party jams, like TikTok, We Are Who We Are, but it's my curiosity for the unexplainable and mystical that drives these fascinating conversations that span non-traditional spirituality, psychedelic art, and all things creepy. Listen and follow Kesha and the Creepies on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Want to stream what you love all in one place? Discovery Plus, a new streaming service. Real-life entertainment, brands you love like the Food Network, and new original stuff, too. It starts in 2021, Discovery Plus. So the greatest sin in the NFL is having a great quarterback who has a lot of talent and you waste their talent. I think Detroit has wasted Matt Stafford's talent with some really weak coaches. I think Houston has wasted Deshaun Watson's talent. They don't have a GM or really a full-time coach right now. And that's a real sin in the NFL. But I guess you could say it's not the greatest sin because Stafford and Deshaun Watson are really expensive. And that does limit other things you can do in your roster. The single greatest sin is having a great young quarterback who you're paying nothing for. And you're wasting him. And this weekend's a great example. I like Anthony Lynn. I've met him and I know him. And I do think he has some qualities, some alpha qualities where guys like to play for him. But this weekend's a great example. The Chargers are an underdog at home to the Patriots. The Chargers have the better quarterback, the better pass rush specialist, Joey Bosa, the better wide receiver, Keenan Allen, 3 highly graded tight ends. They're at home, and they're an underdog. Cam Newton has 4 touchdown passes this year. Justin Herbert had 4 in one game, and not against the Stiff. He did it against the Saints. Okay, in baseball, analytics have devalued the manager. In basketball, Frank Vogel was fired twice. He gets LeBron, he wins a title. The star drives the bus. But football's the coaching sport. We've seen Bill Parcells turn around 4 teams overnight. We've seen Urban Meyer do it in college 4 times. If you look at the division leaders right now in the NFL, what a shock. Mike Tomlin, Pete Carroll, Andy Reid, Sean Payton, the highly respected young Sean McDermott. It's mostly great coaches. Many of the wild card spots are filled with really high-end coaches. Brian Flores appears to be really, really good. The Chargers cannot roll the dice with a coordinator here. You cannot be an underdog at home with Keenan Allen, Joey Bosa, Justin Herbert's talent, an underdog to the Patriots. By the way, what happens when you get a quarterback who's talented? On a rookie contract, Jared Goff got to a Super Bowl. Russell Wilson got to 2. Mahomes got to 1. Joe Flacco and Cam got to 1. The Eagles actually got to 1 because they were paying Wentz nothing and Foles nothing. The sin in the NFL, you've got a great quarterback. He's young and you're not paying him anything. You do not roll the dice on coordinators. You got to go get a coach. Urban Meyer, Brian Kelly, Bill Belichick, whatevs. You got to get a coach. Because the Chargers should absolutely not be underdogs to the rebuilding Patriots this weekend, and they are. Joy Taylor with the news.
Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
Sam Darnold will likely be heading out of New York this season.
Yeah.
He's not lived up to the expectations the Jets had for him. Was the 3rd overall pick in 2018, but Adam Gase is taking some of the blame for his development.
Oh.
I came here to help him develop his career, and we haven't been able to do that. We need to do things well, around him, but at the same time, it's on me to get him to play better than what he's played. And right so far, I haven't done a good enough job.
Sam Darnold hasn't thrown a passing touchdown in his past 142 attempts, which is the longest active streak in the NFL.
That's not great.
If he doesn't throw for a touchdown within his first 8 attempts on Sunday, he'll be the only player in the last 5 seasons to go 150 straight attempts without a touchdown.
And he has regressed badly this year, so it's either Darnold, which is possible, or it's the surrounding elements of the Jets, which I think is more probable.
I think it's a mixture of a lot of things.
Yeah.
He has been hurt a lot. It's not like Sam's been perfect, and he's in a situation that's just a disaster. Obviously, they don't have the players, or they wouldn't be in this situation. He doesn't play both sides of the ball, so it's not like they have this amazing defense who's able to keep them in games and the offense is blowing it. Like, they're not a great team. They're the worst team in the NFL by far, and we know that.
He's also very reckless, though. Some of these injuries are on Sam.
He's very reckless. They don't have a running game. He's holds onto the ball too long. He puts his body in bad situations. And Adam Gase has clearly lost the locker room. You can tell by the way that they play ridiculous amount of penalties. They're just completely undisciplined. It's a disaster in New York. So I think it's similar to what's going on in Philly. Obviously, it's not the same level of disaster in Philadelphia as it is in New York, but I just think there's a mixture of a lot of things that are all playing into losses.
And also, Trevor Lawrence is going to be the beneficiary here because they appear to have a real general manager. They're going to get a pick for Sam Darnold in a trade. They got a ton of picks for the Jamal Adams trade, and the Jets draft was good last year. The good players are playing. So Trevor Lawrence is going to come into a much better situation, and because he's such a great prospect, he's going to attract more coaches. So Trevor's already better than Sam, but the next quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, it's a much better position to succeed than Darnold. And he's better than Darnold, but I think Sam's going to go to a team like the Colts, or perhaps a backup to the Steelers, which I don't think is a terrible spot for him either for 2 years to kind of reboot his career.
I think he's going to end up in a great situation because there are some teams who are not going to be able to get a high draft pick who need someone like Sam Darnold, who obviously has the potential but needs to be in the right situation to see if he can level up to that. Now, if he gets a year and he can't do that, then maybe we're all wrong about him. But I think if he goes to a more functional situation with better players around him, he will be able to succeed, and he will likely end up. If he ends up with the Colts, it's an amazing situation for him. Even if Phillip Rivers plays another year and he has to sit behind him, that's a great situation for the Colts. I don't know if that's going to happen, but he's going to end up in a good situation. I don't think that the Jets are as bad overall, to your point, as it seems to everyone. Like, they're a bad team right now, but they have a million draft picks. They're going to get Trevor Lawrence, who, similar to Joe Burrow, I think is going to come in and immediately elevate the team. So, Seahawks wide receiver Josh Gordon has been conditionally reinstated by the NFL for the final 2 weeks of the season. He'll be able to join the team on December 9th and take part in team meetings and individual workouts if he passes COVID protocol and can return to practices on December 21st. He will then be eligible to play in the last 2 regular season games against the Rams and the 49ers.
I got to tell you, Joy, Seattle, between Carlos Dunlap, Jamal Adams being healthy, Josh Gordon and Chris Carson coming back, I'm not so sure this isn't... This Seattle team is really interesting suddenly. Really talented suddenly.
I've liked Seattle all year. My question was the same as yours. Is the defense going to be able to hold up? It's not the same as it once was.
Looks good in the last 2 weeks.
Sometimes we get caught up in the idea of what a team is because of what they have been for so long and kind of forget that those players are not still there. And those players make up the DNA of that team. So they've completely redone their defense. They looked great. And I'm with you. I think this is a nice addition. I mean, they obviously aren't. This isn't a position that they're hurting at, but why not? Josh Gordon has amazing talent. If they can have him for the last 2 games of the season into the playoffs, it's a great situation for them.
We always know the worst month for Belichick has historically been September. So we know what you initially appear as, you don't necessarily end the year as. Well, like Belichick is 69, Pete Carroll's 69. These veteran NFL coaches do a good job to change certain narratives and truths. I think Seattle has done the best job in the league at finding a weakness and not only kind of bondoing it and band-aiding it, literally solved it. They have the most sacks in the league in the last month, 5 more than second place. So, like, Seattle's issue is not only no longer an issue, it has become kind of a strength over the last month.
And that's all we could talk about with them. Is like, how are they?
They had no pass rush.
Able to get to the
quarterback.
Tennessee
Tennessee never has one, and they haven't solved it. They still don't have one.
So this final story drives me crazy. So the Bucks suffered another early playoff exit this season, coming up short of their NBA title aspirations and expectations. And Coach Mike Budenholzer is not looking at this year as an all-or-nothing season. He said, "To think that a season is a championship or bust is certainly not the way we've approached it. We embrace the opportunity, and we want to be that last team standing, but the phrase is just something that doesn't resonate with me or, I think, our group."
Well, Giannis is young, but I do think I would say this. There is a sense around the league of a more urgency. Let's get to a finals.
I like Mike Budenholzer a lot, and I think they have a great culture there, and he's obviously a great coach. Won 16-39 with the Bucks in the regular season, 15-10 in the postseason, but they lost to the Raptors in the Eastern Conference Finals, and then they lost to the Heat in the second round in the bubble. Here's my problem with it, because this is what Mike D'Antoni used to do a lot of. It's not a championship or bust season. It's not a lost season if we don't win a championship. Okay, well then I don't want to hear about you guys are championship contenders then. because that's really not the expectations that you have. There's a reason why the Patriots are in the playoff conversation and Super Bowl conversation every year. That's the expectation. There's a reason why if the Steelers don't win a Super Bowl, everyone in the city is pissed. That's the expectation. There's a reason why Pat Riley loses his mind when the Heat are not competitive or making it to the finals or winning a championship. That's the expectation. We're not like here hanging out. This isn't like summer camp where you're like learning the fundamentals of the game. Sure, you're going to be consistently good, but are you going to win a championship? No. There's a championship mentality. There's an intangible to having that kind of urgency.
Yeah.
Like, Paul George said it. This wasn't a championship or bust season. Yeah, it was. Yes, it absolutely was.
Nobody really wants to. There are certain things that are maybe true, but you just shouldn't say publicly. And
yes.
One of them isn't, I've got the second, third best player in the league, and it's not championship or bust. When you went out and got Drew Holiday because you're afraid the guy's going to leave. Like, to be honest.
He doesn't sign, he has until December 21st to sign the Supermax extension.
Oh, he does?
Yes.
December. So just we're 2 weeks away from knowing.
I mean, not knowing, but like, it's going to be all within his control. But yeah, basically, like, if he signs the Supermax, he's going to stay there.
All right.
But I mean, I don't know. I just think he is a great coach, and maybe this is the mentality there, but as a fan, I would not want to hear that. It's absolutely championship or bust.
Good stuff, Joy, with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Line News.
I saw this morning. I'm going to talk about this later. Alabama is a 29-point favorite over LSU. 1 year ago, the media told me Ed Orgeron is a great coach. 1 year later, he's a 30-point dog to Bama. Ed Orgeron was a great story. Not a great coach. Let's go to Doug Gottlieb, brought to you by Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing. Doug Gottlieb Show, Fox Sports Radio. All Ball, his podcast, by the way. You know, I was saying this, Doug, is that, listen, scoring matters. But in Wilt's 9 greatest scoring years, no titles. In Michael's 3 greatest, no titles. In that, Magic wasn't a great scorer, but he's a 1. Bill Russell wasn't a great scorer, a 1. I always thought D. Wade had sort of the IQ, the toughness, the respect of other alpha males. He felt like a 1, even though with LeBron he stepped back and said, okay, you're the better 1. I look at James Harden and I'm like, okay, he scores. But Doug, I don't think he wants to be a leader. I never feel like, okay, this is a guy I can rely on. Is it possible James Harden is the world's best 2, and he's simply a great scorer, which this league has had 50 years of, but you don't really build a franchise around him?
I'll meet you in the middle. He's not just a great scorer, he's a great passer. He's as good an offensive player as there is in the NBA, as there maybe ever has been in the NBA, and especially for how the NBA is played now, right? Yes, a lot of NBA basketball has a lot more ball movement than they have in Houston, but his ability to use the ball screen is second to none. His ability to, create space off of mismatches, he hits threes, he gets to the foul line, he plays analytics basketball. He's unbelievable on offense. What he's not is he's not a champion. And you are in the NBA in basketball who your best player is.
Yeah.
And where I will meet you is like you can't not play defense. You can't be a non-defender and expect to win a championship. But I mean, what is Houston to do? Right? They're not going to trade him. There's nothing you're going to get back in return that's going to put you anywhere in the mix. If the story is Westbrook for Wall, what does it do? Look, I still think Houston's really good. They're just not going to beat the Lakers. They're not going to beat the Clippers. Okay? And I think that Washington's going to fight for one of the bottom playoff spots in the NBA. And hopefully Westbrook's relationship with Scott Brooks can be good enough to get the best basketball out of him at this point in his career. And I think more than anything, these moves were made to keep the other stars happy, right? That Harden didn't like playing with Westbrook. Beal didn't like John Wall's work ethic. You switch guys, and maybe those guys are happier, and they stay for a long time, which kind of goes back into your Milwaukee story. I don't know if it makes him happier, but Drew Bledsoe is a massive upgrade over what they had with Eric Bledsoe last year.
So we saw this story this week. Joy and I were reading this, and it was kind of interesting. The Athletic did a good job. They showed you all these things that Paul George and Kawhi Leonard got. Like they had personal trainers. Doesn't bother me. I think in this day and age, a lot of guys have their own trainers, whatever. That didn't bother me. Practice schedules, they dictated. Don't love it, but it is what it is. Media, they wouldn't talk to him until 40 minutes. Don't love that. LeBron's always available to the media. So when you read that story in The Athletic of all the special treatment they got as a former guy that was, ran a team, What was a turnoff to you that you don't think plays in the room, and what is just, hey, it's their stars? You're going to give them some special stuff.
Look, dude, there's a limit there, right? Like you play in college, and the best players get the best shoes. That's everybody at the start. Here's how it works in college basketball. Okay, everybody at the start of the year gets the same like Nike team shoe, and you're like, yeah. And then the starters are like, they go to the manager like, yo, can I get some Gary Paytons? Can I get some gloves? Can I get some shoes that I like, some Jordans, whatever? And then the star gets basically anything they want. So star treatment is nothing new. But some of that, I think there's a couple flaws here. One, they came from different organizations, and so there's not the sweat equity, right? Like, if you come up through that organization, you become a star, and you're like, hey, you know what? I'm from San Diego, I want to live there. But if you're coming in from Toronto, and you've been in San Antonio, and you want to live in San Diego, and people can say, like, well, Kobe lived in Orange County. If the chopper didn't work from Orange County, you could still get there by car.
Right.
Okay? You cannot do San Diego to LA by car and hope to make it to a shoot around, let alone a game. Like you just can't. So there's limits there to how much star treatment. I think that the biggest thing though is that the Clipper culture was supposedly one of the draws for Kawhi Leonard, right? Said, man, they got a great culture, tough, they play together, they're all about winning and doing the right things. And then you come in and this is a direct departure from that culture, which these are warning signs for Brooklyn, right? Because the reason that Kyrie signed and brought Kevin Durant with him was the culture of how they played in Brooklyn. But that culture is not just on the basketball floor, it's off the basketball floor. So does it kill me? Does it really bother me? Like, no, I don't care. I don't care where you live. Show up practice on time. I don't care where you live as long as I don't care who you date. I don't care your sexual orientation. I don't care anything. Just show up at 7 o'clock at Staples Center, guard somebody, make big shots. And the problem was they didn't do those things. And they weren't a cohesive unit. The chemistry didn't get better. And then you have some other guys, the Lou Williamses who wants to go get wings at a strip club when everybody else is on lockdown. You got, Montrezl Harrell violating COVID stuff and showing up late to the bubble, some of these other guys. So their chemistry was a mess. I don't think that in and of itself, these are the reasons why, but it's part of what the cracks in the foundation for the Clippers and why they disintegrated before us when they were in the bubble.
So a football topic, I've always said I think Belichick could leave New England. Brady did, and we were kind of shocked, but he probably won't, but I think he could. I think most people are mobile. I think successful people have more options. I think teams would write a $15 million check for Belichick and just say, get out here, come on, let's win. But let's talk Brady and Arians. Bruce is older. He tried broadcasting, he didn't love it. He's retired before. I can see Brady and Arians at the end of this thing. They stumble, they make the playoffs, they get routed in the playoffs, and Brady like, time out. I didn't come here for this. Get me Josh McDaniel. So I said this a week ago, and I said I'm going to get crushed for this, but I don't think it's nuts. Your thoughts?
I don't think it's nuts at all. I think, though, some of this, I'm more surprised that people didn't see it coming. Here's the first rule you need to understand. 33% of NFL free agents are a hit. 33%. Okay, so go and look at all the quarterbacks that moved, and it was reasonable to think that even Tom Brady might be a failure when he left. There's a reason that guys are out on the market. There's all kinds of reasons. Okay, the second part is guys that leave New England. What generally happens, even to the stars, Richard Seymour, one good year and then off a cliff. Okay, so Belichick allowed him, they didn't move mountains to try and keep Tom Brady. They were like, look, we'd like to have you back, but you don't want to be here. Okay. Former Belichick players generally have 1 year and then they fall off. Then you combined completely contrasting styles. And I talked to NFL people in the offseason and then they thought, well, they're smart football guys. I guess they'll figure it out. But they haven't. Bruce Arians wants to throw the ball downfield, and all Tom Brady wants to do is get rid of the football as quickly as possible. He doesn't want to get hit, and that's where his football IQ and his accuracy within 10 to 15 yards of the line of scrimmage, that's where it's at its peak. And they keep butting heads, and now Arians continues to air their dirty laundry. I'm sure Tom Brady's cool being called out in front of a room of 52 other men with Tampa Bay Buccaneer uniforms, not in front of the rest of the world. So yeah, here's what I could see happening. Brady used Romo as a surrogate last week. There's no question in my mind. Like, you think Romo's just breaking down the tape and dissecting Tampa Bay's offense on his own immediately and calling it out? Of course not. And that's what these quarterbacks do. They're like politicians. Remember when Eli Manning got benched for Geno Smith? Eli didn't say a word, but his former teammates did. And you know what happened? The GM got fired, the coach got fired.
Right.
Eli was back as starting quarterback without saying a word. That's what they do. They kill you while you're sleeping. And that's what Tom Brady will do. Arians will retire, and Josh McDaniels will be in there, and Tom Brady's like, I had nothing to do with it. I don't, nothing. It's amazing what they're able to do.
So finally, we got a couple minutes here. So the Chargers are going to make a coaching move, and I said the biggest sin in the NFL is having a great quarterback like a Stafford, Deshaun Watson, great talent, and you feel like you wasted him. The bigger sin, though, is having a great young quarterback that is free and wasting him. And I like Anthony Lynn, but to me, okay, Chargers have to go out now, and to me, go big. Brian Kelly, Urban, Belichick, whatever it is. Do you think they have it in them? Because I think the sin in this league is you have a Herbert or a Burrow, and you're like, and for 4 years you pay him nothing, and you just go with coordinators and you go cheap, and I'm like, no. Jared Goff got to a Super Bowl when you didn't pay him anything. Flacco did, Cam did. So your thoughts on what they'll do with the Chargers?
I do think they're going to have to make a move. I don't think they want to because Anthony Lynn is as good a man as there is leading an NFL team. And a lot of being a head coach, you know, I don't put all of the blame of the debacle of last week on him. Shane Steichen's inexperience as an offensive coordinator, that was a mess at the end of Buffalo. But it did embody that, like, look, there's a reason they lose all these close games.
Right.
But like, being an NFL head coach is about leading men, about organizing, and Anthony Lynn's good at it. They just lose too many close games. Here's the thing. People are going on old data with the Chargers in terms of them being cheap. They are absolutely not cheap, okay? They paid Joey Bosa more than anybody had been paid. They paid Melvin Ingram before that. They were going to pay Keenan Allen. They're going to pay Hunter Henry, right? They're going to be able to pay all these guys within reason, and they like to pay them early, and especially now because they have a quarterback on a rookie deal. They are not cheap, okay? They don't need a new facility, but they're probably going to open a new training facility in LA just because they want to show everybody we're in LA and we got money to burn. Okay? So they're not cheap, but they are also very smart. They nearly hired Brian Flores instead of hiring Anthony Lynn, and they thought he needed a little bit more time to simmer. So I don't know who they're going to hire. I do think they'll try and get somebody who has a track record of success. But the cautionary tale is of getting rid of Shane Steichen, who I think has done a really good job. Remember, he was put in as the offensive coordinator midseason last year, and he's done a really good job. It's when you start to get different quarterback verbiage every year and a different offense every year. That's what happened to Alex Smith. Right, Alex Smith, I think 7 coordinators his first 7 years. And shocker, once he had the same offensive coordinator 2 years in a row, he played better football. So if it's me, I keep Steichen. Okay, I make an adjustment to the defensive staff. You get Derwin James back. You continue to build that offensive line, which of course has been just decimated by injuries. And I think the Chargers are a worst to first type of football team. Once you get a coach that understands how to teach them those little things are what keep you from winning games.
Doug Gottlieb, Duggar after our show, Fox Sports Radio, All Ball Podcast as well on iTunes. Good seeing you, bud.
Good to see you without a cigar in your mouth.
A guy can enjoy himself a little bit the other night. Just a little one, half a cigar. That's good. And a Heineken, it's all good. The Duggar. Okay, coming up next, Blazing 5 top of the hour. Playoffs start today. Where are we at? Playoffs start today. Who plays who? Who do I like? That's next.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
Get ready to laugh and learn. I'm Nick Smith.
I am Flame Monroe. I am he, she, we. He cash a check, she make the money, we spend it.
Laugh and Learn is a weekly podcast bringing you the latest headlines.
The infighting within the LGBT community is ridiculous. Baby, let me tell you about that rainbow in the front. Check the back of it. Potholes, thunderstorms, gunshots, all that.
Keeping you politically informed.
Because that's what we do. We wait to the presidency, but we don't think about all the steps that it takes to get to the presidency, which is congressmen and senators and judges and people put in place to think like us and look like us.
Mixed in with a little pop culture.
They ain't went to no Ice Cube. Understand, Ice Cube ain't even got that much juice. He ain't got that much power. This ain't Bad Boys in the Hood. He ain't Dope Boy.
You never know what you're gonna hear.
Don't I look like Beyonce Mama? Don't I look like Beyonce Mama?
Subscribe and listen to Laugh and Learn on the iHeartRadio app or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts.
You know exactly where you were when the Golden State Killer was arrested. You still pay for cable to get Lifetime. You're a moderator on the Zodiac Killer subreddit. You're basically a seasoned detective, and you're in search of a new challenge. Enter Solve, the hit podcast that puts you at the center of the investigation. Each week on Solve, you will untangle a case that has pushed detectives to their limits. Solve is like no other murder mystery podcast. You'll piece together evidence from interrogations, crime scenes, and witness testimony to track down killers hiding in plain sight. Your cases are waiting for you. New episodes of Solve are available now on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. One crime, 4 suspects. Can you solve it?
The streaming service with everything you're into. It's called Discovery Plus. It's coming in 2021, US only. Got shows you love, brands you love, like the Food Network, HDT, Discovery Channel, plus some exclusive originals, Discovery. Blazing 5, all those odds provided by Fox Bet, top of next hour. I feel great about my picks this week. Really like them. Have some underdogs this week. Like some underdogs this week. So 1 month ago today, exactly, and I do this usually 2 or 3 times as we go down the stretch. About every 3 weeks to 4 weeks, I'll do this on a show. And I did it 1 month ago as of this morning. That I take all the teams. If the playoffs were today, who would I like? Who ends up in the Super Bowl? I'm not going to predict the Super Bowl. I'll wait till Super Bowl week, but I'll tell you where. So let's start with the AFC. Here's the current AFC playoff matchups if they began today. The Colts would be at the Kansas City Chiefs. I think you know who I would like. Kansas City is, I think, the only team in the NFL that plays several different ways to win. Physical, finesse, in front, behind. I would take the Chiefs. The Dolphins at the Titans. I would take Tennessee. I think the Dolphins have been a great story. I do not think they're a great team, and right now, they're not sure who their quarterback is. It's been a wonderful year, but this is a baby step league. They get into the playoffs. They don't win a road playoff game. I take the Titans. Browns at the Bills. I just think Buffalo's a better football team. I also think Buffalo defensive coach Sean McDermott, they are very good situationally, defensively, and I think Allen's better than Baker. Obviously, I would take Buffalo to win that game. They're a good home team. Then the Bills are at the Steelers. I'll pick an upset. I'll take the Bills over Pittsburgh. I think Buffalo does several things very well. I'm not sure what the Steelers do well, and now they're banged up. They're talented, but what can they lean on? Outside of sacks, not much. Tennessee at Kansas City. Too many people are calling for an upset here. Kansas City is a better football team. They'll be at home. And the Titans, let's be honest, as much as I like them this year, they rolled the Colts last week. They also got blown out by Cincinnati. They can be a little hot and cold. I'd take Kansas City. Then it's Buffalo at Kansas City in the AFC Championship. I have no problem saying Kansas City wins and probably rolls here. Let's go to the NFC. Arizona's at Seattle. Kyler Murray's beat up. I think this is a coaching and a roster mismatch. I think with the addition of Carlos Dunlap, Jamal Adams healthy, now Josh Gordon, this Seattle roster's damn good. They're at home, experienced coach and quarterback, they win this game. Tampa Bay at Green Bay. I think it's a bad matchup for Tampa. I don't think this is a good matchup for Tampa, for Green Bay. Tampa can be a physical team. Green Bay is not. I'll take the Bucs. And then I'll take the Rams, even though they go on the road to beat the New York Giants. I do think it's close. Defensive front for the Giants keeps it close, but I would take the Rams. What do we have after that? Buccaneers at the Saints. Saints win. Much like Tampa's a bad matchup for the Packers, Saints are a bad matchup for Tampa. Beat them 3 straight times. Rams go to Seattle. I'm going to take the more consistent Seahawks in this game. And by the way, it'll be close. Rams, Seahawks, there are defensive issues. Aaron Donald gives the Seahawks the offensive line issues. Rams, Seahawks will be a very close game. Jalen Ramsey matches up very well against DK Metcalf. It's a close game. I'll take Seattle at home in bad weather. Seahawks, Saints, I'll take Seattle. I think they're more explosive offensively. I think the Saints are an excellent football team with limitations over the top. That is what has hurt them in the playoffs last several years. I'll take Seattle narrowly on the road over the Saints. If we had non-COVID in a full stadium, I'd probably take the Saints. Kansas City, Seattle, the exact same Super Bowl I had 1 month ago on November 4th. I like Kansas City, Seattle in my Super Bowl today. Winner, I'll give you that on Super Bowl week. Chiefs, Seahawks, Super Bowl. We go to hour 2, Blazing 5, and a good one coming up next.
I created the podcast Prodigy to find the answer to a question. Can genius be created? Many believe it can, because it's happened before. Was it a coincidence, or is it repeatable? In pursuit of the answer, I interviewed brilliant academics, social scientists, groundbreaking researchers, and the prodigies themselves to gain a better understanding of intelligence, skill acquisition, expert performance, and genetics. Disregard all simple explanations, because complex questions require complex answers. My name is Lowell Berlanti, and I'm seeking the answer to a very complicated question. What is the nature of our intelligence? Listen to Prodigy every Thursday on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Nearly 600 years after the invention of the printing press, the most important book in the history of the world has arrived.
That might be overstating things.
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things. It will change your life forever.
Well, that's not necessarily true.
Most scientists agree that Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, is proof that time travel is possible. Because that is the only way to explain how a book this impressive was possibly made.
What?
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, will regrow hair, whiten your teeth, and improve your love life.
That's just not at all right. Well, the love life part, maybe, if you find someone who thinks smart is sexy.
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things. Available for pre-order now at StuffYouShouldKnow.com.
Now that is true.
My name is Jamie Loftus, and I'm here to tell you about my new show, Lolita Podcast. Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov is one of the most controversial works of all time, and our culture has done its protagonist a huge disservice over the years. I've spent the last few months getting to the bottom of how America turned this abused young girl into a sex symbol, and what that says about us. New episodes drop weekly on Mondays. Listen to Lolita Podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
This is Jenny Garth and Tori Spelling, and we are doing a podcast. And it's called 9021 OMG. Can you believe it's been 30 years? 30 years since what? Since we started 9020. Oh, man. Since I graced you with my friendship. That means you're old. She's a year older, by the way. Listen to 9021 OMG on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Here we go on a Friday, Blazing 5 in a couple of minutes. Live in Los Angeles, it's the Herd, wherever you may be and however you may be listening. Fox Sports Radio, iHeartRadio, FS1. I'm in a good mood today. I ate an entire sausage pizza by myself last night. I've never been prouder of myself, and I can still feel it. And it was just unbelievable. Listen, I was stuffed halfway through it, and I'm like, nope, forge ahead.
What is your go-to pizza toppings?
I don't really have them. I like all pizza. There is none, so I'd never had a sausage pizza at the place I went last night, Slay Italian. And we got all sorts of stupid rules in Los Angeles County, and I ordered it, and I got to tell you, I sat there by myself. I took my mask off, and I had half a glass of wine, and I was exhausted halfway through it, and I said, you have to, George Washington, forge ahead.
You have to keep going. Once you commit to
and
it.
I was so proud. When I was done, I was like, good for you. I was proud of what I had done.
I usually order sausage, pepperoni, onions, and extra garlic.
Those better not be date nights.
Listen, I mean, if you want to complain, it's fine. You know, I worked in a pizza restaurant.
You did?
In college, yes.
What was it called?
It was called Anthony's Coal-Fired Pizza.
Oh, I love that place.
It's awesome.
In Pittsburgh?
No, in Florida.
Oh, wow.
Miami.
They have pizza down there? All right.
Yeah, that's where it started.
Oh, okay. Pizza's from Miami.
No, not pizza. Anthony's Pizza started in South Florida.
All right. So excited for my picks this week. I really like them. They're not as good as like 3 weeks ago. And last week I went 2-2-1. I pushed on the Monday Night Football game. I bet it at 6. It went up to 6.5. And I told people I hate 6.5. I like 6. So a 500 week. Here we go.
That's a hot one. Let's blaze it up. Fire it up. It's Colin's Blazing Fun. Browns at Titans.
I'm going to take Cleveland plus 5.5 here. I like Tennessee, but we're going crazy because they smoke the Colts. Sell a little of my Titan stock, but I still like them. Here's why I like Cleveland plus 5.5. Their Browns offense is the #1 rushing offense in the league, and Nick Chubb has had over 100 yards in 5 straight games. It's rolling. The Tennessee defense will make Baker comfortable. They're the worst third down defense in the league and have the 29th most sacks. Translation, they'll move the chains on third down. Baker Mayfield will have time to throw. And by the way, the Browns are 8-0 this year when Baker Mayfield just has a passer rating over 70. Not 90, just 70. This is a good matchup for Cleveland. I don't think they'll win, but I think it's close. I like to lay the points here. I'm going to take Cleveland plus 5.5. I think the Titans will probably win late. Wouldn't be shocked if there was an upset, but Cleveland's the play here.
Rams at Cardinals.
Okay, everybody's freaking out because the Rams lost to the Niners. Okay, they're 0-4 the last 4 times. It's a bad matchup for the Rams. Last time they lost to the Niners, everybody sold their stock. The Rams went on for the next month to play some of their best football in 2 years. I'm going to take the Rams -3 against the Cardinals. This is a bad matchup for Arizona. The Rams defense is outstanding. They're top 5 in everything. Everything. And the Rams are 6-0 against the Cardinals in the Sean McVay era. He's got their number. This division's a weird division. Some teams have other teams' numbers. Niners have the Rams number. Rams have Arizona's number. And by the way, Kyler Murray's played Sean McVay in this defense twice. He has struggled. By the way, DeAndre Hopkins, Jalen Ramsey is the magic elixir for DeAndre Hopkins. You can take that big receiver, put a big corner on him. That's why the Rams match up pretty well with a Seattle and DK Metcalf, and with an Arizona now, Jalen Ramsey. Also, Arizona's a rebuilding team, most penalized team in the league. Kyler Murray is hurt. They're not running the ball with Kyler Murray. That is less of an offense. I like the Rams 33-27. I like the way their roster matches up with Arizona.
Patriots at Chargers.
I'm going to take New England -1 to go on the road and beat the Chargers. Listen, Bill Belichick is officially 20-5 against rookie quarterbacks. 7-0 in the last 5 years. You take Belichick against rookie quarterbacks, no matter how good they are. Okay, the Patriots defense, only one quarterback's thrown over 300 yards all year, Deshaun Watson. The Chargers defense without Derwin James is giving you almost 28 a game. And New England, they're limited, but they're a fumble away from going to overtime with Buffalo. They beat Arizona. This has been a very interesting team 2 out of 3 weeks. I'm going to take Belichick against a rookie quarterback. I think it's a coaching mismatch, Anthony Lynn and Belichick. And I look at New England and I think Damian Harris run the football. Chargers aren't great against the run. Keep it away from Justin Herbert. I'll take the Patriots 24-20.
Eagles at Packers.
I know this is kind of gross, but I'm going to take Philadelphia plus 8.5 here. I know. Say what you want. I'm going to give you a number here. Philadelphia, the Eagles have been ahead or within 1 possession in the 4th quarter in every game this year. They gave Pittsburgh everything. They gave Baltimore everything. They came back and covered against Seattle. I'm not talking about winning games. I'm talking about covering the spread. I'll take Philadelphia plus 8.5. They're 7-3 against the spread in their last 10 games as a dog of 6+ points, meaning when they're a big dog, they play inspired football. Often lose, but their defense has 36 sacks. Only the Steelers have more. And what do we know about the Packers? They don't like to be uncomfortable. Philadelphia gets in your face. Philadelphia, Fletcher Cox. They put pressure on your quarterback. Aaron's not going to be sitting back in this convertible sports car in good weather throwing it. It's going to be an ugly game. That's what Philadelphia does. I think the Packers win, but the Eagles easily cover the 8.5, 27-23 Packers.
Bills at 49ers.
I'm going to take the 49ers. The number has moved some. Yeah, I'm taking the 49ers side. I'll say Fox Bet. All of our odds, by the way, provided by Fox Bet. I'll say Niners plus 1.5 here. The Bills' rushing defense is not great, and the Niners are getting healthier. Raheem Mostert, Deebo Samuel, Richard Sherman returned last week. Brandon Ayuk returns this week, and you can run the football on Buffalo. Buffalo also traveling all the way west again. And the Niners, by the way, you worry about Jimmy Garoppolo out. You know, with Garoppolo, they threw for 230 yards a game. With Nick Mullins, they throw for 270 yards a game. And they've got all their skill people here. So San Francisco, the season's on the line in their division. They don't win, season over. Season's on the line. Buffalo's the playoff team. They got comfort and room here. I'm going to call for the upset. Niners win 26-23. For more of my Blazing 5 picks, check out the Fox Bet social platforms. So in review, I took some dogs this week. So I like Cleveland with the points. I like Philadelphia with the points. I like San Francisco with the points. New England Chargers is mostly a pick'em. I'll take Belichick over Anthony Lynn, and Belichick 20-5 in his last 25 games against rookie quarterbacks. And my one favorite is the Rams over Arizona. I think Kyler Murray's hurt. And don't sell all your Rams stock because they look clunky against the Niners. It's a bad matchup for the Rams offensive line. It just is the last 2 and 3 years. It's bad. Arizona does not match up with the Rams. Arizona doesn't pressure the quarterback. What do I always say? A comfortable Goff is a winning Goff. By the way, I want to throw this out there. Is the Jets, the Jags, the Chargers, and the Texans. There's 4 quarterbacks right now, most of them pretty young, that are really good. The Jets are going to get Trevor Lawrence. The Jags are going to get Justin Fields. The Chargers have Justin Herbert. And the Texans have Deshaun Watson. They're all going to get new coaches. This is what I don't get. When you have a star young quarterback, get the coach right. Wouldn't you think Brian Kelly's name would be just out there? Matt Campbell at Iowa State, everybody loves him. His claim to fame is he got to an Alamo Bowl. Brian Kelly, 4 places he's been a head coach. Win. One big in all of them. He's been a head coach since 91. He knows how to head coach. If you look right now at the top 10 in college football, only one program is an academic power, Notre Dame. What does that mean? He's having to compete against Bama, Ohio State, Clemson, Texas A&M, Florida, Georgia, at an academic power. It's a much more rigorous class load for the average football player. It's hard to win at Notre Dame. I'm not rolling the dice on a coordinator with Justin Herbert and Deshaun Watson. I'm not rolling the dice with Trevor Lawrence, with Justin Fields. I don't understand why Brian Kelly isn't mentioned. For the record, well, he's old. No, he's not. He spent so many days in wind-blown environments that he looks old. It's all that wind in Cincinnati and Notre Dame. He's 59. Belichick's a decade older. Pete Carroll's a decade older. Andy Reid's almost a decade older. He's 59 years old. I'm in my 50s. Do I look old? Don't answer that. The point is, Brian Kelly, Matt Campbell at Iowa State, everybody loves him. He's never won 9 games in a weak conference. Brian Kelly goes to Notre Dame. They have games scheduled he can't get out of. Like your Stanford's, he goes there every other year. And I'm not saying Stanford and USC are great, but they're a lot better than the teams Iowa State's playing 90% of the year. And I like Matt Campbell. He may be great. But essentially what Brian Kelly is, he's Matt Rule at Carolina with twice as much experience. And by the way, Brian Kelly, I know he's not an offensive guy. If you're coaching since 91, you can coach offense. But he's not an offensive guy. Right now, in the NFL, division leaders, 4 division leaders are coached by defensive guys. Seattle and Pete Carroll, Pittsburgh and Tomlin, Vrabel and the Titans, Bill Sean McDermott. Miami Dolphins are not a division-leading team, but Brian Flores is a defensive guy. Let's stop the idea that, you have to be an offensive guy to win in this league. It's nonsense. That's just not the case. Do you look at some of the greatest coaches of all time? They've overwhelmingly been defensive guys, not offensive guys. So Matt Campbell is doing a great job at Iowa State, deserves all the love in the world. Brian Kelly is going to be his 2nd BCS playoff. And again, when he's recruiting against Clemson and Alabama and LSU, Notre Dame is remote, bad weather, religious umbrella, academic workload is very difficult. I just don't get it. He's had 4 straight 10-win seasons at Notre Dame. They went 20 years, couldn't find the right coach. I don't get it. Head coach, successful, and by the way, you're going to have to pay him. I mean, he's not, but I think there's this idea that Brian, he so many windblown games, everybody looks at him and the cheeks are red and he's up there and kind of, maybe he's got an old school personality. He's 59 years old. He's a 59-year-old guy. Guys who coach in the NFL are almost 70. I mean, Nick Saban's like 67, isn't he? And Nick Saban looks great. Nick Saban could coach for another 10 years. I don't get it. I'm not rolling the dice in a coordinator with Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Deshaun Watson, and Justin Herbert. I'm not going with a coordinator. I'm not doing it. And I know Brian Flores. Yeah, it happens occasionally, but I like the head coaches. I like head coaches. Brady got a guy who had been a head coach, Belichick. Tom Coughlin had been a college coach, and then he'd been an NFL coach, and then the Giants hire. I like head coaches. Urban Meyer's been a head coach a bunch, and Parcells was a head coach. All right. Eric Mangini, head coach, will be joining us next.
Want more Herd? The Herd streams 24 hours a day, 7 days a week within the iHeartRadio app. Search Herd to listen live or on demand whenever you like.
It takes a lot of grit to serve your country, and the lessons that military service members learn in uniform are valuable no matter which path they've chosen. That's why T-Mobile is supporting iHeartRadio's Vets You Should Know podcast, sharing inspiring stories of dedication, perseverance, and camaraderie from U.S. veterans.
So when I went to that basic camp for the Army, I was told that my voice did matter and that I needed to use it. So from that day on, I had to rebuild myself, really. And it was those members of the military, my friends, the drill sergeants, who really helped me regain my voice and regain my confidence so that I could be a voice for others going forward.
T-Mobile is proud to support iHeartRadio's Vets You Should Know podcast and honor all those who have served our country, this Veterans Day and always. Check out the Vets You Should Know podcast, available now on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Then learn more about T-Mobile's ongoing support of military and veteran communities, including career assistance, community support, and discounts for active service members, veterans, and military families at T-Mobile.com/military. T-Mobile, ready to serve those who serve.
My name is Jamie Loftus, host of shows like My Year in Mensa and The Bechtelcast. I'm here to tell you about my new show, Lolita Podcast. Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov is one of the most controversial works in American history. The story and its main character have been adapted, misinterpreted, and twisted over the years by Hollywood, by fashion, by fans of the book, and by the author himself. Lolita has gone from the tragic story of an abused 13-year-old girl to a cultural narrative that frames her as the seductress and to blame. So how did this all happen? It's a messy story. This is a story about a girl named Dolores, and I think she's gotten lost over the years. I'll be speaking with literary scholars, with experts on abuse, and with the actors who have played the part of Lolita and more. So let's get to the bottom of it, for her. New episodes drop weekly on Mondays. Listen to Lolita Podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Want to stream what you love all in one place? It's called Discovery Plus, a new streaming service starting next year, U.S. only, Discovery Plus. Exclusive originals, stuff like the Food Network, which you already love. Eric Mangini won 3 Super Bowls with the Patriots as an assistant. When he was with the Jets, he was the AFC Coach of the Year. And he is my buddy, Fox Sports NFL analyst Eric Mangini is now joining us. So, you live in Cleveland, which, how's the weather there today, Coach? How is it?
The worst storm in 10 years.
Okay.
Bunch of trees down, 2 feet of snow. Yeah, you're not missing anything.
Okay. I said, organizations make decisions before they tell you. And Baker against Pittsburgh blown out, manhandled by the Raiders, crushed by the Ravens. This Tennessee is a pretty good matchup. They don't have a pass rush. And right now, Baker is 8-0 this year with a passer rating over 70. When he's comfortable and they run it, he can win games. If he goes out this weekend and lays an egg and plays too fast, I do think the Cleveland guys look at it and think, okay, what do we got here? Like against the good teams, what do we got? I think it's a huge game for Baker Mayfield to show the front office and the coach, I can go on the road and face a playoff-level team, and I can go toe-to-toe with Ryan Tannehill. That's my takeaway on the Browns this weekend. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's the exact opposite way that they should be approaching it. The last thing you want is Baker Mayfield thinking that he's got to go out and win the game, because that form has been bad for him all season.
look, you nailed it with the passer rating. When his passer rating is above a D, when it's out of the 60s, they've won the games. And every time they turn around, they're giving the ball to a guy who's either running it for 6.1 yards a carry or, what is it, like 4.6 yards a carry. Baker has to go in and manage this game, first of all, and not lose this game, because that's one thing that Tennessee is really good at, is creating turnovers and generating opportunities, and that's been a problem for Baker. So if he'll just go out and get above a D in quarterback rating, they've got a pretty good chance to win this game, and they've got to see that he can do that and do it on a consistent basis.
You know, it's interesting. You know Belichick very well. We were talking this week. I can't believe they're 5-6. They've beaten Arizona. They're a fumble away against Buffalo from going to overtime, a play away from beating Seattle. And I look at it and I think to myself, I don't know how they're in all these games. They've got no playmakers. What do you make of Belichick? And they play the Chargers this weekend. My guess is Belichick will give a young rookie quarterback troubles. What do you make of the job they have done?
I think it's an incredible job, and they should have, or at least could potentially have 2 more wins, and we'd be talking about them in a totally different light. But you look at the volume of guys that they had opt out, the volume of guys that they have on IR. They lose their special teams coach, they lose their offensive line coach, their quarterback gets COVID, they lose their franchise quarterback. They've got all these different challenges, and they also take a quarterback that nobody wanted and find a way to make them very effective. The thing that New England does great is everybody goes into the season with a plan of who they think they're going to be, and then New England realizes who they need to be, and that's why they get better every single year. Is because they have that brutal honesty, and Bill has that ability to look at his team like that and say, okay, this is who we have to be, even though it's not, what we had hoped to be going into the season. And so many coaches can't do that. They just keep hitting their head against the wall.
So, you like the Steelers, I'm told, more than I do. First of all, they outside of Cincinnati, they can't put anybody away. Now they got Devin Bush out. Now Bud Dupree's out. So the one part of the team I love, the front seven, is not as good. They don't run the football. They leave a lot of points, on the field. I know they're 11-0. What do you see? Because I want to know, they do rush the passer. No dispute, and that is an absolute asset. But there's not a lot of other things. I think they're going to struggle now to stop the run without 2 of their best 3 linebackers. What do you see when you, as a coach, about the Steelers?
Well, I heard you talking about the Steelers and them not being serious Super Bowl threats, and I disagree completely. When you look at where they are statistically, the big 3, so takeaways, sacks, and points allowed, they're number 1 in all 3, and nobody's ever finished number 1 in all 3. Okay, 3 teams have finished in number 1 in 2 of those categories, and it was the Legion of Boom, it was the 2000 Ravens, and it was the 85 Bears. So they're pretty good defensively by objective standards. Now you've got a Hall of Fame quarterback, and I like Ben Roethlisberger a lot, and maybe I like him a lot more than other people, having to deal with him year in and year out for so long. They've got continuity as an organization. They've got a head coach with experience and a really good demeanor and approach. And then they have the biggest thing. There's no drama. The Steelers are always conflict diamonds. We're always talking about the issues that they have as they're winning. They don't have this year, and to me that makes them even a bigger threat. I don't know why you're not on them. I think they're as poised to win as anybody.
Yeah. So I'm going to throw this at you with Carson Wentz. So he had a little bit of a backup quarterback complex with Nick Foles. There's a stadium outside. And then they draft Jalen Hurts, meaning in the second round, meaning he's going to be asked about that every week. And I think to myself, listen, I know you're supposed to be above that, but Tom Brady's a GOAT, and he didn't like Jimmy Garoppolo in the building. This is Howie Long always jokes, you can't have 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks in the same room. One sucks all the oxygen out of it. I don't love drafting Jalen Hurts in the second round for a quarterback that has to walk past a Nick Foles statue every week. Couldn't I say they haven't been sensitive to maybe a young Carson Wentz dealing with one of the most vocal, loud, media-driven cities that they haven't done him any favors as an organization.
Well, when Tom Brady was dealing with his issue, Tom had a lot of pelts on the wall and a lot of success behind him. And you can understand his frustration to some degree. Carson doesn't have that. He didn't win the Super Bowl. He's only won 2 out of the 5 years that he's been the starter. And if you're all the time have to look at your quarterback and figure out what we have to do to prop him up mentally, then he's probably not a franchise quarterback. You see him on the field. There's resilience in the way that he plays. But if he's going to be that affected by a guy who's drafted in the second round, then that's a problem. Now the reality is they can't move on from Carson Wentz. If this thing doesn't work out, there's going to be a new head coach. He's $59 million in dead money next year. This has to work with Carson Wentz, and Jalen Hurts to me is more of a bring him in for a series of plays, change the tempo, create something a little bit different. He's that type of guy, at least in the short term.
By the way, I'm going to throw this out there. We talked about this during the break before we went on the air, and I thought you had an interesting point on it. I said, Brian Kelly's been a head coach 4 times. He's won everywhere big. Notre Dame's got a rigorous academic load for students. None of the other top 10 programs have that. He's winning. He's recruiting against the Ohio States, the Bamas, the Clemsons, the great programs, the Georgias, and all this stuff. And I'm like, why is Matt Campbell at Iowa State the hot guy? He got to an Alamo Bowl. I mean, I got nothing against Matt Campbell, but I just don't understand why Brian Kelly's not a topic of Harbaugh's having a horrible year. Everybody's talking about Harbaugh back to the NFL. And your thoughts on Brian Kelly were what?
Well, first of all, I don't think he's not getting the job because of how he looks. As I said, there's a lot of unattractive head coaches.
I didn't say he was unattractive. I said he was windblown.
Okay, but there are a lot of unattractive head coaches by fairly objective standards. But it doesn't mean they can't coach. But what I said is, oftentimes with college coaches, they are being approached. Their agents, the teams are reaching out to their agents. They're actually talking about opportunities. But they can't let that get out because everybody is going to use it against them in recruiting. They're going to tell the players, look, this guy's looking to leave. He's an NFL, he wants to be an NFL guy. And you saw that to some degree with Nick Saban when he eventually went to Miami and then came back. There's a lot of talk about, he wants another shot. And Nick's been pretty demonstrative about putting that to rest. So I think he probably has been contacted and will be contacted. Then smartly, they'll keep it under wraps so it can't be used against them.
Yeah, I think he's a really good football coach. I really do. He's a defensive guy like you, but he's had effective quarterback play. He's not easy on quarterbacks. He's run through a few of them, but I don't know. I think he's a really good coach. I don't buy this thing. You have to be an offensive head coach. I don't buy that nonsense. Brian Flores is great. He's a defensive coach. Sean McDermott's great, young guy. He's a defensive coach.
Yeah, I don't think it's got to be that way either. I think if anything, you're looking at the challenges he's had to overcome in Notre Dame, and you should be really impressed with that. There's a ton of guys that have gone in there and failed, and that's a hard place to win. It's a hard place to recruit, and he's done it. Now, transitioning to the NFL has been a mixed bag with a lot of college coaches, so there's some apprehension there to say, okay, let's go get that guy and he'll be able to turn around our franchise in this environment.
Eric Mangini, have a great weekend shoveling snow. Really appreciate you stopping by.
We'll see you later, Colin. Have fun.
All right. I want to say again, I don't think Brian Kelly looks doesn't matter, but it is. I think they think he's too old or something, and he's 59 years old. That's all he is. He's a 59-year-old guy. Saban's almost 70. Belichick almost 70. Pete Carroll over 70.
It's not what's on the outside. It's on the inside,
he's
guys.
Fine. I don't even care. It's
inner beauty.
It's just Brian's always in these wind-blown games, and his cheeks are all red. It's like, he's still a young, vibrant guy.
I don't think he looks old at all.
I don't even know why
he's not even a thing.
Well, he didn't even get into it all. Brian Kelly's a handsome man. Just stop. I'm just saying.
He's totally handsome. What is the issue?
I don't know. Something I said was interpreted as it's not about. I think Mangini took it the wrong way. My takeaway is that we never see Brian Kelly's in a jacket. It's a cold air. He's coaching in Notre Dame.
Is that a thing? Like
he's all bundled up, and it's like he's a vibrant, dynamic 59-year-old guy who's obviously a great recruiter because he's going up. Notre Dame is hard to recruit at.
Yeah.
It's like isolated, cold weather, 8 feet of snow today.
I have a friend in law school there, so it's very hard.
It's hard. They got like Applebee's. You have to get on a train and go 2 hours to get to a city, Chicago. It's hard. What do we got here? Oh, Joy with the news.
Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
Dak Prescott still has a long road ahead of him in his recovery from season-ending ankle surgery, but he's extremely motivated to get healthy and back with his teammates. He said, every day when I wake up and go in for rehab, it's about seeing my leg or seeing my body do something that I didn't do the day before, so I know that I'm continuing to get better, and at the end of the day, I know my team needs me, so it's about helping them whichever way that I can, but it's about being right mentally and counting those small victories.
Oh, that's nice.
Rehab is very, very exhausting. I will say I feel like it's different for an athlete to rehab than a regular person, because a regular person still has to do their job, like their day job and everything else, and rehab, whereas for an athlete, it's just your job to rehab.
Right.
However, the mental part of it is worse for athletes, because if you don't get better, that is your job.
Right.
And a big part of coming back from injuries like this is trusting yourself. I mean, it's the process of the injury. Like, obviously, when you initially get hurt, it hurts, right? But then it's going to hurt for a long time, because you're going to have surgery. You're going to have to teach yourself how to walk again. You're going to have to do the stretches at home. You have to ice. It's like an exhausting process. And that's what he's talking about. Like, the way to stay focused through that is the small victories every day. Your knee bent a little bit more. You were able to stand for a little bit longer. You rode the bike for a little bit longer. But they've obviously been missing him, the Cowboys have. They've gone 1-5 without him. Andy Dalton, Ben DiNucci, and Garrett Gilbert have a total of 1,182 passing yards, 6 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. I do think that Dak is going to be back with the Cowboys this year.
I do too. I would move off, but he will be back. I
think he'll be back.
Yeah.
So, the Chargers don't have much to celebrate this season with a 3-8 record, but they can be happy that they found their franchise quarterback, and Justin Herbert has averaged 294.6 yards per game at a 66.5 completion percentage in November, with 11 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, and those numbers have earned him Offensive Rookie of the Month, honors for the second straight month.
He's really, really special.
I think it's great. I mean, we were exactly on the same page with Justin Herbert. Weren't sure. Felt like he had, like, the physical type and the arm, but, like, I didn't see enough from him throughout the season.
Well, we saw...
in the bowl game, I saw what I needed to see.
Yeah, I mean, Senior Bowl and Rose Bowl, he was the best player easily in both those games. And so, to me, that's where I went from... To me, there was a narrative both you and I thought at the end of the year, which was, I kept hearing from people I trust in the business, like scouts and stuff, they're like, Oregon's really conservative and they don't have good receivers. Like, he's better. Like,
Oregon is the thing limiting him, not him.
Right. And then when he was dominant at the Senior Bowl, and then Wisconsin had a good defense, and he made people miss. He was great against Wisconsin. Then you're like, okay, the staff didn't feel comfortable with Justin's backup, so they kind of ran a conservative game plan until there was no games left, and they let him go, and it's like, wow.
I just think it's so impressive how he's been able to step in and take over the team when he was not expected to start this season. I mean, we've just forgotten what happened with Tyrod Taylor. Like, he was not even supposed to be out here. Like, he was supposed to be sitting and learning, and has stepped right in, Offensive Rookie of the Year for 2 straight months. I always thought Joe Burrow was a step above Herbert and Tua, and my questions with Tua were kind of what put Herbert and Tua on the same level to me. I didn't love the injury history with Tua coming in. Like, obviously he had the talent and the wow factor, but injuries matter to me. Are you available? That's a skill to me. And Herbert seemed like he was obviously very conservative as a player, but that was really just the system that he was in. So I'm happy that it's going well for them. I hope that they put the pieces around him so they can be successful. Finally, big fight tomorrow night. We are locked down here in LA, so I'm looking forward to sitting on the couch and watching this. Errol Spence Jr. and Danny Garcia, the two will be battling for the world welterweight title. Spence is undefeated in his boxing career with 21 knockouts, and Garcia is on a 2-fight win streak with a 36-2 record.
This is a real fight. America gives us about 2 great fights a year. This is one of them.
This is a great fight. Remember, Spence was injured in a car accident in October of 2019, so he hasn't fought for 14 months. I was at Staples for the Spence Porter fight, which was a really great fight. And Spence won by split decision. That was September 28th of 2019. So this is going to be a really well-matched fight. And it could, if Spence wins, lead to the Terrence Bud Crawford welterweight title fight, which is kind of what this is leading up to. So this is a really big fight on Saturday. You can catch the weigh-in at 2 Eastern on FS1. You can buy the fight now at foxsports.com/KeepTV, but I'm looking forward to this. I'm going to go with Spence.
Yes, we should. He's the favorite and should.
Well, he hasn't fought in a long time, and this is his first fight since that car accident where he was thrown from his car and almost died. So this is even though obviously Spence is the better fighter and is going to be the favorite in this, there's a whole story to this that he hasn't fought since that accident. So it's going to be a good time on Saturday night.
Buy it. I will. Joy will. Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Line News.
Difference between a great story and a great player or great coach, and Aaron Rodgers celebrates another birthday in Green Bay. But you know it's not the perfect fit being Green Bay. That's coming up.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
Are you dealing with best life burnout, constantly striving for more, and quite frankly, over it? Maybe you just want more joy, peace, and laughter in your life now. Well then let's go. Welcome to your new favorite podcast, Hot Happy Mess, hosted by me, your girl, Zuri Hall. Join us each week as we discuss dating, relationships, self-care, career wins and losses, and so much more. Oh, and moments like this. You know what? Sometimes the grass is greener on the other side because it's fake.
Well, that's why I mentioned muting. There are some people who will check you.
Oh, we got some petty people in our lives. I was crying by the water because I was happy.
And I do love a clear.
Not liquor. Wine will be spilled, laughs will be had, and a few tears might be shed. Messes will be made, but we're gonna find our magic in the middle of them. Don't miss new episodes every Monday. Find Hot Happy Mess on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey everybody, it's AJ McLean from the Backstreet Boys. Check me out with my girl Cheryl Burke and my boy Rene Elizondo on iHeartRadio's Pretty Messed Up. This show talks about pretty much anything, everything, love, life, drugs, sex, rock and roll, you name it, and a little bit of dancing as well.
So you guys, we're into this now, what, 4 deep?
Yeah.
And I really like what's happening with us. Apparently we're connecting with people. Not everyone has to have a drug problem to understand what it feels like to feel less than.
Because we're also talking about mental health, right? We talk about the stuff that people don't really want to talk about, or that they feel maybe they're alone when feeling certain things. And I've never been this vulnerable and open, especially on Dancing with the Stars. You guys see an edited version of me, but we get pretty deep and we just talk about everything. So just make sure you listen to Pretty Messed Up on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Sunday, the NFC South leading Saints take on the Falcons, or Jared Goff leads the Rams against the MVP candidate Kyler Murray and the Cardinals, or other regional action. Check local listings for the game in your area only on Fox and the Fox Sports app. Steelers Washington football team is featured in this week's free-to-play Super 6 contest. Download the Fox Super 6 app and make your picks before kickoff Sunday for your chance to win Terry Bradshaw's $100,000. All you have to do is correctly predict the outcome of 6 NFL games, and for top stories, scores, and more, go to the Fox Sports app. Colin, give us your winner and final score for Steelers versus Washington football team.
26-23 Steelers. I take Washington plus 7.5 to cover. I think Washington's a good bet this week. I didn't put it in my Blazing 5. It was the close one. It was the one I almost did. But Washington's a good cover. They ugly up games. They'll make it ugly.
And it's a short week.
Short week for the Steelers. Good point. Rick Bucher, senior writer, Bucher and Friends podcast, NBA analyst for us, is now joining us live. So I was saying this, the James Harden thing is funny. Everybody tells me he's a 1 because he's a great scorer. He can't get along with Westbrook and Chris Paul, and now he tells me he likes John Wall. He ran through a GM, 2 coaches. Can I make the argument Harden's a great scorer, Magic wasn't a great scorer. He was a 1. Russell wasn't a great scorer. He was a 1. That James Harden's just a really talented 2 that you can't build around.
You can make a case that he's a number 1 player, that he can be the best player on your team, but he's not a number 1 leader. And to be honest, there are very few guys in the league that are. I just had this conversation with a GM at the beginning of the week about how many guys that you could say are true leaders of their team. Not just the best player, but a guy who makes everybody else better and has that ability to carry a team, to literally lead a team to a championship. He said you can count them on one hand, and a number of those had to develop into becoming leaders. That's where I don't want to say that James can't become one any more than Kawhi Leonard can't become one. They just aren't right now. LeBron wasn't one when he started. Kobe Bryant wasn't one when he started. It's a skill set that is separate from just being the top scorer. And as we've seen, I mean, honestly, he can light John Wall all he wants. Chris Paul was as close to the ideal running mate for James Harden as he was going to get. And unless he learned about leadership from Chris Paul, who also had to evolve into an effective one, I don't know that anything's going to change measurably for the Houston Rockets.
Montrezl Harrell, Dennis Schroeder clearly make the Lakers better. Are we overreacting to those acquisitions? Should they be the big favorite?
Boy, are we. Look, did their car improve? Did they upgrade? Without question. And could you make a case that this is the best team that LeBron James has ever had at the start of a season? Absolutely. But, look, you're in LA. We're both in California. We're looking at across the country. Did we not just experience this? At the starting line, the Clippers also had the ideal car to win a championship. We're confusing the vehicle with the road to get there. And the reason that the NBA designed the season the way they did, with no starting training camp now and not disclosing what the second half of the schedule is going to be, is because they're anticipating, much like the NFL, we're going to have to reschedule games. And they have a lot more games to go through, and they're going to be traveling a lot more. So you are going to have outbreaks. I still maintain that if we don't have the shutdown and we don't have the bubble, that the Clippers are very capable of winning a championship. I remember how we were all convinced, you and me included, they had what was necessary. The bubble took advantage of their greatest weakness, which was team chemistry and the fact that they needed more time together, not less. That 3 months killed them. So ultimately, I look at what the Lakers have. Should they be the favorite? Absolutely, they should be the favorite. Can they do again what they did? Sure, but we don't know what the road looks like. We don't know how many games are going to have to be rescheduled. We don't know how the outbreaks are going to impact things. And we don't know if Anthony Davis, if I'm not mistaken, the number of games that he played last season in total, 83, is the second most that he's played in any one season. Why is that? Because he's had trouble staying healthy. Can he do that in a season that doesn't have a 3-month shutdown and then goes to an expedited playoff? Can LeBron James at 36 maintain the health that he's had? Those are legitimate questions. So I just feel like we've all jumped on this train, not taking it into consideration the unique circumstances with which the Lakers won last year's championship and the unique circumstances, which we still don't know what they are, that they could face in this championship run.
Couple minutes left, so we have to be somewhat succinct. So the Athletic came out and talked about all the special stuff that Paul George and Kawhi Leonard got. Did any of it seem bizarre or over the top to you, Rick?
Not at all. Not at all. Look, having covered this league for a while, here's the reality. Stars, superstars, get preferential treatment. John Stockton and Karl Malone got preferential treatment. It's just like they were in Salt Lake City and nobody was paying attention. But if they needed a practice this off. Jerry Sloan found a way to give them practice. Damian Lillard, one of the best leaders we have in the game, decides ultimately this is what I'm going to do on this given day, and he does it responsibly. Now, there are other things that go into leadership, but in terms of if I'm going to look at the preferential treatment of Kawhi Leonard and Paul George and say that's why they didn't win a championship, again, they were getting that preferential treatment all season long. We were watching them all season long, and we still believe, you know what? They're playing well enough. They've demonstrated they can play well enough to win a championship.
Rick Bucher, covering the NBA since the early 90s. You look good today, buddy.
Thank you very much. We're working with a new camera here, just for you.
Very professional. All right, good seeing you, buddy. All right. Same. But preferential treatment. So I don't even have a parking space here. What could I ask for, Joy? Being very important. What could I ask for that would not be egregious? Parking space?
I think parking space is reasonable. I think parking space is important, actually.
So I should ask for a parking space.
I don't like having to look for a different... I like to park in the same place every day.
So do I, but I just never open. So I don't have...
Yeah, no, not anymore.
What about...
I didn't have that problem on Undisputed because no one was here.
Goulet, do you get I was going to say free haircuts for me. Do you get haircuts, Goulet?
No.
So what about haircuts?
You get free haircuts.
I know I do, but I didn't ask for it, but they just do it. So what is
part
something...
of hair and makeup.
What is something I should ask for?
I don't know. Do you like a particular scent in your dressing room? Maybe you get a special candle.
Really?
I actually don't even know if we're allowed candles in here.
You know what I do get? Free Fig Newtons. And by the way,
I love those.
I'm heavy-handed. I demand them.
You know what I do think about your staff and get free stuff for us? A little breakfast for the crew, maybe?
I used to do that. I used to do that on Friday, but COVID disrupted that.
True.
I gave bagels and coffee on Friday for the staff, and then COVID screwed it up.
I was thinking it's kind of interesting that we're having these conversations about preferential treatment, and one of the big problems was Kawhi being late.
Yeah.
And we talked to Andrew Whitworth about the Rams culture.
Yeah.
And he said they have one rule.
Be on time.
Be on time.
That was John Madden. The great John Madden was not a rule guy. I remember years ago, I don't want to call the guy out, so I walked, this true story. I'll tell you after the break. I don't want to call this person out. He was a minor league baseball manager for the Phoenix Firebirds. I had just gotten out of college, and I went into their clubhouse to do an interview. He had 26 rules. And I'm like, okay, I can't remember these. And to me, that's always been my thing. I even tell Goulet, show up ready to go, show up on time. I'm not a rule guy. Just be ready to play. Green lights on, red lights on. Boom, let's go. Be ready to go. All right, hour 3, next.
You know exactly where you were when the Golden State Killer was arrested. You're a moderator on the Zodiac Killer subreddit. You're in search of a new challenge. Enter Solve, the hit podcast that puts you at the center of the investigation. Solve is like no other murder mystery podcast. You'll piece together evidence to track down killers hiding in plain sight. Your cases are waiting for you. New episodes of Solve are available now on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. 1 crime, 4 suspects. Can you solve it?
Hey, I'm Gabby.
I'm Taylor. I'm Nika.
And we're the hosts of a new podcast called
Cadaver Gals. We're just 3 fun and flirty gals talking about all the fun and flirty ways that people expire.
Like how 3 people died because of a poodle.
Basically, this podcast is kind of like Sex and the City if they only talked about dead people. Join us as we laugh, but mostly cry, in the face of death.
So listen to Cadaver Gals.
Out December 9th. New episodes out on Wednesdays.
Listen to Cadaver Gals on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
My name is Jamie Loftus, and I'm here to tell you about my new show, Lolita Podcast. Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov is one of the most controversial works of all time, and our culture has done its protagonist a huge disservice over the years. I've spent the last few months getting to the bottom of how America turned this abused young girl into a sex symbol, and what that says about us. New episodes drop weekly on Mondays. Listen to Lolita Podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hello, Earthlings. It's Kesha. I'm so excited to be bringing you my new podcast, Kesha and the Creepies. You may know me from my party jams like We Are Who We Are and TikTok, but it's my curiosity for the unexplainable, the mystical, the magical that drives these conversations with exciting pop culture guests and experts in the occult and all things creepy. Listen and follow Kesha and the Creepies on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Discovery Plus is a new streaming service. It's going to have some big brands like Food Network, Discovery Channel, and then exclusive stuff too, originals, all coming in 2021, U.S. only. Plaxico Burress on the phone. He'll be just a second. He's ready to go? Plaxico tells a funny story. So when he was with the Giants, they went and played Green Bay, and it was so cold. And he put Vaseline all over his body because it was so cold. He tells that story. He really, I mean, that's how, and I always remember that game because it was he and Eli, and that was the Giants' Super Bowl year, and they went to Green Bay, and you could not guard Plaxico Burress. Couldn't guard him. And now, it's funny, now you have all these big receivers, like DK Metcalf. There's a lot more big receivers, but at the time, Plaxico was a very unique body type. He could run, but it was physically, he was, 6'5". You couldn't match up with him. And that's now, everybody wants that. Everybody's trying to get that. And Plaxico Burress is joining the Super Bowl champ. Giants beat those unbeaten Patriots. It is interesting. We talk about this all the time. The Pittsburgh Steelers, more than any organization in the history of the league, does wide receivers well. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they get them in the Pac-12, the Big 12. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Why? So tell me the culture. Why do no team drafts a position better than the Steelers and wide receiver? Why? Did they do homework on you that nobody else did, or what?
They get in their lab and they do their homework, and they have a great scouting department. So when I was drafted in 2000, Kevin Colbert, that was his first year as a general manager for the Steelers.
Yeah.
And I was Kevin Colbert's first pick ever in 2000, in his first year as being a general manager. And since 2000, Kevin Colbert and the Pittsburgh Steelers have drafted a receiver every single year for 20 seasons. So he is going to draft a wide receiver every single year. And you sit back and you look at how these guys have been playing over the years. Antonio Brown, Mike Wallace, Emmanuel Sanders. You look at Chase Claypool.
Yeah.
You just look at all these guys that he's drafted who have had the phenomenal talents. But he goes and finds them in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th round, and they put these guys on the field, and they just continue to go out and perform at a high level week in and week out. It's just amazing that they can, the scouting department goes out and finds these guys, and they just come out and play well.
Yeah. It's interesting. You're a former New York Giant. You won your Super Bowl there. And they, listen, Coughlin, Tom, he loved you. And then they went through Ben McAdoo and Pat Shurmur, and it didn't work. And I didn't love Joe Judge as a hire because my takeaway was, first of all, Belichick's guys don't work a lot. And secondly, he'd never been a coordinator. Tell me, what are you hearing from your sources and your friends with the New York Giants? Because I watched the Giants, Plax, in the last 6 or 7 weeks. They get better every week with Joe Judge. Every week I watch them. They're a better football team. What is he doing that people like?
I think that, everybody's kind of buying into the system. They got out to a rough start, 0-4, 0-5, or whatever the record was in the beginning of the season. And now you start seeing these guys begin to gel. But you have to remember that none of these guys had a training camp. So, their first evaluation of guys, was basically during the season.
Yeah.
Week 1 and week 2. So right now, going into the rest of the season, if you look up, the Giants have a great defense, and I think that's one of the things that's kind of keeping them in these games. And they've been able to win, 2 or 3 games in a row, which they are calling a winning streak around here. So they'll take it. But I think everybody's buying into Joe Judge. It was kind of everybody was around here a little skeptical at the beginning of this year, but I think that you're going to continue to see those guys get better and better as the season goes on.
So Bruce Arians and Tom Brady, there's a lot of talk that it's not working as well, as everybody hoped. What's interesting is you have a relationship with Bruce Arians. First of all, you were a coaching intern with him for a while. He was also, I think he was with Pittsburgh, and he was one of your, if I recall, he was one of your coaches there.
Yes.
Yeah, so You tell me, what did you like about Arians, and maybe what do you look at and think, oh, that may not work with Brady?
I love BA. Bruce was my wide receiver coach in Pittsburgh for 2 years, and I remember sitting down in the locker room going into my fourth season, and I had never met him before, and I was just finishing up a workout in the off season, and he came down and touched me on the shoulder, and he said, "Hey, I'm Bruce Arians. I want you to come upstairs and watch some film with me." And it was the first time that a coach had really sat me down from a personal standpoint and made me look at film and teach me coverages. He taught me the ins and outs of defenses, what they were giving me, what they were taking away, getting out of my brace and different things like that, and recognizing coverages. I think those are the things that he taught me helped my game flourish because I was seeing the defense before it happened, and I'm forever grateful for that because he's a great coach, he's a great mind. But as far as the relationship between him and Tom Brady, look, BA wants the best out of his players. That's just how he is. But at the same time, he knows that Tom has been around long enough that he can take the public criticism. BA wouldn't be, criticizing a guy that is, second, third year quarterback because, maybe his skin is not thick enough to take the criticism. But he knows that Tom can take it. And trust me, all the public scrutiny between, Bruce and Brady is all smoke and mirrors. Those guys sit down, after practice and they hash it out and they just get back to work.
So Carson Wentz is a kid that I like a lot, big, strong. I think he's really talented. But, they draft Jalen Hurts behind him. The Nick Foles story, he keeps hearing about how good his backups are. Go back to your career.
Right.
Was there ever a quarterback that you played with? Because a lot of people are saying, listen, Carson's just lost confidence. It's not talent. He's got talent. Was there ever a quarterback, even in college, that you played with that had the talent, but stuff got in his head and it affected the way he played?
Oh, man, you kind of put me on the spot here, man. What you want me to just bash my guys that I played with? I mean, come on, man. I mean, you know what? I really haven't had a chance to really watch Carson Wentz play this season. I've seen highlights and different things like that, but it just doesn't look like to me that he's seeing coverages very well right now. He's making bad decisions, throwing in the coverage and different things like that. But for him, losing your confidence as a player, you can't play if you don't have confidence, especially at that position. Everybody's looking at you to be the leader of the football team. He's the franchise quarterback of that organization. So if the Philadelphia Eagles want to get better and play better, Carson Wentz has to play better. And right now he's just not getting it done. I can hear the birds chirping all the way down here in New Jersey from Philadelphia. They're riding them pretty good right now. So I hope from a personal standpoint that he goes out and plays better.
So, I love me some Sam Darnold, but he's had a bad year, and it's kind of a mess, and my guess is the Jets are going to draft Trevor Lawrence, who's a remarkable prospect. In New York, he can sell tickets. He's a big superstar in college. My guess is they draft him. New York, you got to sell some tickets, and Darnold is struggling. Your gut feeling on, is Sam Darnold just a bust, or can he play? What do you see with Darnold?
I think Sam Darnold can play. I think a couple issues there is that, he doesn't really have the playmakers that a lot of these great quarterbacks have, playing right now in the NFL. And, he has to play better also. But I think you have to put him around some guys that, so you can see his talent flourish. And flat out, the New York Jets are just terrible right now.
Yeah.
There's no way around it. Defense isn't playing well. They can't stop anybody. I mean, I've never been in a situation when I'm 0 forever, 0-11, 0-12, but it has to be tough to walk into the building and be confident and go out each week and perform and try to win football games when everybody's confidence is down. They're like, we're not a very good football team. They're trying to win a game, and it just hasn't happened. As far as Trevor Lawrence going there, I don't want to see this young man confidence get destroyed coming to New York because it's a tough uptown to play. You have to have thick skin to play in this market. He's a phenomenal talent, but the same problem is going to remain. If you don't put these quarterbacks around guys that can make plays, this is what you're going to continue to get week in and week out. And you have to be able to stop people on defense. They haven't been able to do any of that. So that is why they're on forever. And, kudos to Trevor Lawrence. If he comes to New York, hopefully they put some guys around him. But I don't really think he's the answer. I think they have to make some changes in the organization, in the front office, general manager, maybe head coach. But they already said Adam Gase will probably be back for the following year, so who knows. But they just got to get some football players.
Yeah. Plax and LeVar Arrington and TJ Hushmanzada are debuting Fox Sports Radio tomorrow, 1 to 3 Eastern in the afternoon. It's called Up on Game. Plax, it's great seeing you again. Continued success. Loved having you on the show.
All right, thanks, Colin. Good to see you. Go Sparty.
Go Sparty. There you go.
It takes a lot of grit to serve your country, and the lessons that military service members learn in uniform are valuable no matter which path they've chosen. That's why T-Mobile is supporting iHeartRadio's Vets You Should Know podcast, sharing inspiring stories of dedication, perseverance, and camaraderie from U.S. veterans.
So when I went to that basic camp for the Army, I was told that my voice did matter and that I needed to use it. So from that day on, I had to rebuild myself, really. And it was those members of the military, my friends, the drill sergeants, who really helped me regain my voice and regain my confidence so that I could be a voice for others going forward.
T-Mobile is proud to support iHeartRadio's Vets You Should Know podcast and honor all those who have served our country, this Veterans Day and always. Check out the Vets You Should Know podcast, available now on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Then learn more about T-Mobile's ongoing support of military and veteran communities, including career assistance, community support, and discounts for active service members, veterans, and military families at T-Mobile.com/military. T-Mobile, ready to serve those who serve.
Yo, this is Jeezy, urban philosopher, philanthropist, and the host of the Recession Podcast, a production of the Black Effect Podcast Network and iHeartRadio. I'll bring you raw conversations about systemic racism, mental health, life on the streets, and much more. My guests would include influential figures like Charlemagne the God, Dr. Jess, and Tony Robbins.
Martin Luther King said, a man, or you could say today a person, who hasn't found something they're willing to die for isn't fit to live. Those pretty strong words. But I really believe in my soul that what changes people is when you find something to serve more than yourself.
So join me on the Recession Podcast by Jeezy. That's RESESSION Podcast. That's right, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you prefer your podcast.
Lloyd Taylor with the news.
Heard on the news. This is the Herdline News.
Well, the Rams will travel to Arizona to take on the Cardinals for the first time this season. They found success against them in 2019, winning both games, sacking rookie Kyler Murray 7 times. This season, Kyler and the Cardinals are playing much better, but Aaron Donald is confident the Rams have a good game plan for him.
We know what to do because we played a lot of mobile quarterbacks. We got two of them. We got him and we got Russell Wilson in our division. So we kind of know how to handle it. He's playing better football than he was last year. So and he got some good guys around him that's helping him as well. So we got our hands full, but we prepared for the challenge and we ready.
Rams match up very well with Arizona because they can put Jalen Ramsey on DeAndre Hopkins. And they get a great pass rush. So the Rams defense, and they've really done it in like 1 year, it's formidable. I think this is a tough matchup for Arizona.
You have this in your Blazing 5.
I like the Rams. My one favorite, Rams minus
covered.
3. I think they win by a touchdown. And by the way, McVay and the Rams, this system has given Cliff Kingsbury and the Cardinals trouble for 3 straight years.
I think that the Cardinals are 1 more year away.
Yes, I think so too.
They have lost 2 in a row since the Hail Murray game.
And he's hurt. Kyler Murray's hurt.
They're 6-5, and they need to stay ahead of teams like the Vikings and the 49ers, which are at 5-6. they're all jockeying for that 7 seed. But yeah, I don't like the way that the Cardinals have been playing the last few weeks. I agree with you. I don't think this is a good matchup for them, and I think everyone kind of overreacts week to week with the Rams, because the Rams are a very inconsistent, very good team.
Offensively, they can get turnover prone really quickly.
Yes, like there's people talking about benching Jared Goff. So like people really overreact to the Rams.
Yeah.
And then they come out and have a great performance, and all of a sudden they're back in the Super Bowl conversation. I don't think that they are a Super Bowl team, but they are still a very good team, and they are a step ahead of the Cardinals. I would take the Rams in this game as well. So 3 of the league's best running backs will be on display when the Titans take on the Browns on Sunday. Very interested in this game. Derrick Henry has proven to be the key to the Titans' offense, and he'll get to watch 2 very talented backs on Cleveland's side of the ball. And Henry praised Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt's talent, saying they're one of the best duos in the game, if not the best. Those guys are ballers. I like this game because I think these 2 teams are very similar in that obviously both of their offenses run through their running game.
Yeah.
I would kind of give the edge to Cleveland's defense, but then I would give the edge to the Titans quarterback and Ryan Tannehill over Baker Mayfield.
Now, Myles Garrett does return, and they're a little banged up on the Titans O-line, which is one of the reasons I think Baker will face less distress than Tannehill. So I think Baker, and I think Tannehill's better, but I think it'll be, when Baker's comfortable with a run game, throws 23 times, this team's 8-0.
Yeah, I mean, their running games are both great and evenly matched. Like, Derrick Henry obviously is the one guy, and they have Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, but they're both neck and neck. I mean, Kareem Hunt has 706 rushing yards this year, Nick Chubb has 719, and Derrick Henry's in position to earn his 2nd consecutive rushing title, leading the league with 1,257 yards. So that's the equalizer right there. So it's going to be one of those other factors that you mentioned. But again, like, I trust the Titans more just because of Ryan Tannehill, but I'm really interested in this game. And I agree with what you said earlier. I think this is a big game for Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, I mean, listen, he's going to play for them next year, but I believe if he struggles this week like he did against the Ravens, the Steelers, and the Raiders, I do think organizationally they will make decisions and they'll say, listen, it ain't working to the level we need it to, so they'll go to their scouting department and say, let's look for, in the round 2, 3, 4, the next guy.
They've had a tremendous season, and Stefanski's clearly the guy. They've put a lot of pieces together. Baker's done an amazing job at managing this offense, which, is what you want. You want to get wins at the end of the day, but if you want to win the big game, you're going to need a guy there that can make those big plays.
Yeah.
And eventually you're going to have to see that from Baker. Like, it's not a knock, it's just an assessment on what they are this year.
And they're really talented offensively.
Yeah.
And yet they have no passing game. So, it's time. This is the time.
Yes, you have to step up at one point.
This is not a Darnold situation where we don't feel he has any help. This is lots of help and a really stable new coach.
So finally, Anthony Davis secured a 5-year, $190 million max contract extension to stay with the Lakers, and Jared Dudley is expecting AD to step up his game even more in his 2nd year with the team.
I'm expecting AD to go for the MVP. I'm expecting him to set the tone. We know LeBron, his years playing in this league and all the accolades he has, but AD doesn't have some of those accolades. He has the talent, he has the determination. So I'm expecting AD to set the tone early on. Even though he might have, there's games he has to miss on back-to-backs, that's okay. But he's 27. He should have been Defensive Player of the Year. He's the future and he's the now.
It's funny. I felt like last year, it was like a do-over for Anthony Davis. It was the first year, because nobody watched him in New Orleans.
Right.
It was watching him, you're like, it was the first year I was like, oh, he lived up to his potential. Not that he wasn't a good player, but last year was like, this is what he is, which is a dominant playoff big. And he's been great, but it was the first time I watched Anthony Davis, and I totally bought into, okay, that's what you can build around.
No, he leveled up, but Anthony Davis is still not a 1. And I don't see that ever developing for him. We were talking to Rick Bucher earlier, and he was talking about how, Kobe develops into being a good leader. Guys can develop into being good leaders. And it's not that Anthony Davis is not a good leader, but, you're not going to take over that role ever when LeBron James is on your team.
No. It's just not going to be. It isn't. There are certain players. Magic, and old Magic, still was the Lakers. It doesn't matter. Certain Michael Jordan could be 44. He would be your. D Wade.
Yeah.
Was even with LeBron, he was 1A. It was LeBron was the best player, but Wade was a rock solid franchise driver as well.
Yeah, it's just not going to happen in this situation. Now, if when LeBron moves on and Anthony Davis is still there or whatever, we'll see. But the MVP conversation, and look, it's not that Anthony Davis is going to put up numbers, and he should have been Defensive Player of the Year.
Right.
But you're going to get cannibalized by LeBron being on your team in the MVP conversation. So will he deserve an MVP or be, talked about in that space? Yes. Will he actually win it? We know how the MVP goes in the NBA. Whatever the narrative is at the beginning of the season, if that person is still healthy by the end, that's who's going to get the MVP. Like, that's just how it goes when it comes to the MVP in the NBA. But I'm with Rick, too. Anthony Davis has to stay healthy.
No, listen, it's not even a criticism. It is a reality.
That's it. Like, that's going to be the key if they're going to return the championship and win it again.
I don't think it's irony that when he played with LeBron, he got healthy. I think LeBron demanded more of him. LeBron's an old guy. LeBron's like, bro, I'm playing, and I'm not feeling great.
They also had some time off, so
that helped a lot. That's a great point.
No travel. There's a lot of factors in this season.
It was in a bridge season. No, that was a good point. Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
Jason McIntyre, NFL picks next.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
Do you like fresh out of the oven chocolate chip cookies? Do you love wholesome heteronormative lifestyle? And do you like pretending that menstrual cycles just don't exist? Then you'll hate Tampon Rock.
Tampon Rock is a scripted comedy podcast, kind of like Friends, except gay and with black people. So, actually, really not like Friends at all.
But it is about friends. They have a band, they live in Oakland. Also, it's a musical, but not a musical like you're thinking of.
Chicago.
Shout out.
And what I love is that these songs in Tampon Rock typically set up the next scene.
Why don't we just show them?
Roll the clip.
The roof is filled with lesbians.
She got a period. So there you have it.
A little tease, if you please.
Listen and follow Tampon Rock on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. This is Jenny Garth and Tori Spelling, and we are doing a podcast. And it's called 9021 OMG. So why are we doing a podcast? Well, we get to tell the fans all of the behind-the-scenes stories that actually happen. So they know what happened on camera, obviously, but we can tell them all the good stuff that happened off camera. Oh, remember all those times? No, I don't remember any of it. You have an amazing memory. You remember everything about the entire 10 years that we filmed that show. And you remember absolutely nothing of the 10 years that we filmed that show. I'm going to name that show. Beverly Hills 90210. Oh, she's so good. This is going to help you too. It's going to jog your memory because we're going to rewatch it with them. Oh, good. It's like my daily dose of ginkgo biloba. Listen to 9021 OMG on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Starting in 2021, U.S. only, Discovery Plus is coming, a new streaming service. Greatest collection of real-life entertainment from your favorite brands, plus exclusive originals you won't find anywhere else. Streaming what you love in one place, Discovery Plus. Well, Jason McIntyre is a friend of mine for a long time. He used to be a newspaper guy, but he bailed on that industry smartly. And then he got into radio and TV and stuff, and he comes on every Friday on our show for his NFL picks. I love them. Let's bring on Jason McIntyre, Fox Sports Radio on the weekends, too. All right, well, let's just get right to I think you got a lot of the games. I don't know what side you're on, but you picked 4 of the 5 games I like. So let's start. Tomorrow's headlines today. Browns at the Titans.
It's a great game, Colin. You know, 2 of the better teams in the AFC. The headline will be Browns miles from Super Bowl contention. Now listen, I do like Cleveland a lot this year. We talked about this team in August. I had them as a playoff team. I bet on them when I drove to Vegas and a quick day trip to make the playoffs. But this is a tough spot for them. Colin, this is an 8-3 team with a negative 21 point differential. Okay? When they play good teams, they get creamed. The question is Tennessee good, or have they just looked good in the last couple weeks? Last 3 games for Tennessee, okay? Colts, Ravens, Colts. That is a tough stretch. So the Browns could win this one, but I do ultimately think Tennessee prevails, and the number to watch is 4, okay? Baker Mayfield, your boy. I know you guys are fine. You got a good bromance going on, okay? Baker Mayfield, 4 consecutive games without a turnover.
That's right.
Best stretch of his career. Doesn't end here against the Titans. We shall see.
Yeah, being well coached. All right, tomorrow's headlines today. I stayed away from this, baby. Saints at the Falcons. Atlanta's Bermuda Triangle for me. So what do you got?
Bermuda Triangle. I like that. Okay. The headline will be, you taste some, you lose some. But I have the Saints prevailing here, Colin. I think this is a win for the Saints. They right now have won 8 straight right now. They're more dangerous than eating indoors at Applebee's. That's how hot this team is, Colin. We're talking about the only team in the NFL, top 10 in the NFL in offense, defense, and special teams, according to Football Outsiders. And listen, I know the football Twitter people, right, they think they're smarter than Sean Payton. Oh, you should start Jameis. This Taysom Hill is a joke. I just want to remind everybody, Sean Payton has lost Breeze last year and this year. And they are 7-0 against the spread with no losses without Drew Brees as the starter. Sean Payton is a great coach. We need to give him his due. I like the Saints here. I had a bookmaker on my podcast, Colin, who said so much Falcons money drove this from 3.5 down to 2.5. There's a lot of people back in the Falcons here. Not me. I'm on the Saints.
Tomorrow's headlines today. Rams at the Arizona Cardinals. Kyler's hurt.
Probably the best game of the weekend, right? This is a phenomenal one. Maybe you'll finally invite me over. We'll watch it together, have a couple beers. The headline will be adding to the Kylite reel. I like Kyler Murray. I have that man crush on him. He's struggled lately. You mentioned the shoulder injury, but look who he's going opposite against today, on Sunday. It's Jared Goff. And Jared Goff kind of reminds me of Ryan Gosling, okay? They look alike, and neither of them has done anything good recently. Jared Goff, 9 turnovers in the last 4 games, Colin. His coach called him out. I do wonder what's that locker room's going to be like. Are they just going to say, we don't trust you, Jared. We're going to hand it off. And the key number for this one, Colin, is 31. In games where Kyler Murray is held under 31 rushing yards, 1-8-1. Arizona needs him to run. And I do believe Jalen Ramsey will lock up DeAndre Hopkins on the outside, and Kyler's going to have to win this. I have faith in him. It doesn't sound like you do.
I don't. Tomorrow's headlines today. Belichick and the Patriots at the LA Chargers.
They're calling this the biggest coaching mismatch in NFL history.
Come on.
The headline will be just in time. Give me the Chargers, Colin. I'm the only man betting the LA Chargers this weekend. We got a Fox research guy who helps me out. Any questions I have for gambling all week, he crunches the numbers. Bill Belichick, 24-5 against rookie quarterbacks. He hasn't lost to a rookie quarterback in 7 years. That's how good this guy is scheming up against the rookies. But I have faith in Herbert. I'm putting aside the Anthony Lynn factor because he's so bad, okay? Listen, as everybody on planet Earth is saying, he's a nice guy, man. He's really swell. He's such a friendly character. He's a bad coach. There's a reason they are 3-16 in one-score games in the last 2 years. Colin, every game that's close, they can't deliver. I don't want to revisit the Buffalo ending last week. You had Buffalo. Congrats. I had the Chargers. I was vomiting at my house uncontrollably watching that series of plays. Let's not revisit it. But I like the Chargers. They're the better team. You cannot tell me, Colin, that the Patriots have a better offense or defense than the Chargers. You can't. It's just not factually true.
All right. Tomorrow's headlines today. The ugly, at times gross Eagles at the flashy, lovely, front-running Packers.
Yes, I know you're a market guy. You watch the stock market all the time. This is a stock market game. The headline will be, everyone loses once in a while. And Aaron Rodgers is going down this week, okay? Stock market, you want to buy low, right? Sell high. I'm buying the Eagles low. We all watched them on Monday Night Football and said, you got to bench Carson Wentz. This Eagles team stinks. They're going nowhere. What about the Green Bay Packers? Sell them high. We watched them on Sunday Night Football.
25 million people. Packers, they're a Super Bowl team. The Bears stink. I am selling the Packers off that impressive win, and I'm buying the Philadelphia Eagles and Carson Wentz. And Colin, before you tell me, Jason, we need a recount. I don't think you're right here. We just saw how the recounts went in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin in this election, and I am sticking with the Philadelphia Eagles to deliver for me against Aaron Rodgers.
By the way, as a long-time Jet fan and advocate, Sam Darnold is probably going to be replaced by Trevor Lawrence. You believe that today, right?
Yeah, 100%. Colin, I have told my family I'm not shaving this beard until the Jets win a football game. And my daughter, who's in the next room, said, Dad, the Jets may go 0-16. Does this mean you're not shaving until September? Are you going to look like that homeless guy on the SEC network that they trot out every week? And I said, I'm just going to grow it. It's going to be James Harden length beard if the Jets don't win a game. Can they beat the Raiders on Sunday? That's the question.
No, they're not going to beat the Raiders. No, the Raiders just got humiliated. Good teams get humiliated. They always play really well the next week. That's why I like the Rams this week, by the way. When you look lousy and Goff got humiliated, your practice is more focused. You bring everything down. So watch the Rams play well and watch the Raiders play well this week. That's my theory.
Raiders, huh? Okay. Did you put them in the Blazing Five, the Raiders?
No, I didn't, but that's because I liked other games better. So.
Okay, fair enough.
All right, Mud. See ya.
All right, take it easy.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost always, the NFL, you're never as bad or as good as you looked the previous week. Like, for instance, I bet against the Titans this week because they just looked unbelievable against the Colts. They match up well against the Colts. So they don't match up as well against Cleveland. And the Rams do not match up. They haven't for 3 years now. They don't match up with the 49ers defensive front. And so what happens is Goff looks awful against them. So what happens? Every time the Rams play the Niners, they lose or it's ugly and everybody bails on the Rams. They come out the following week after Niner games and they always win. So the basic rule in the NFL is nobody's as bad as the last Sunday or as good as the last Sunday. Like the Raiders, John Gruden was pissed. That's humiliating. They are not. I guarantee the Raiders had an unbelievable week of football practice.
I believe he said it was like pulling teeth watching that tape.
For Joy and John, see you Monday. Be safe, it's the Herd.
It's pretty easy these days to feel disconnected. We're pulled in so many different directions, and that can leave us feeling incredibly fragmented. But together, we can grow more connected to ourselves and to each other. And that is what my new podcast is all about, coming home to our wholeness. Listen and follow Holy Human with me, Leanne Rhymes, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hey everybody, it's AJ McLean from the Backstreet Boys with my girl Cheryl Burke and my boy Renee Elizondo on iHeartRadio's Pretty Messed Up. This show talks about love, life, drugs, sex, rock and roll, you name it, and a little bit of dancing as well.
I've never been this vulnerable and open, especially on Dancing with the Stars. You guys see an edited version of me. We get pretty deep and we just talk about everything. So just make sure you listen to Pretty Messed Up on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.